Walker here from CAA. We're here today to talk a little bit about the growing problem that we have in Ottawa in general and in Canada overall around car theft. Car theft is becoming one of the most pronounced issues of our time, actually, in terms of issues that authorities and criminal justice agencies are dealing with. I've got a couple of guests here with me today, Kathy Brown and Doug Belanger from the Ottawa Police Service. Thank you so much for coming today. We want to ask you guys a few questions about the ins and outs around car theft, some of the things that consumers can kind of do to protect themselves. So I'll start by just asking the question, which is, I think a lot of us are now understanding that we're at this almost crisis point in terms of how many cars are getting stolen and ending up in various parts of the world from Canada. Why is this happening, and why is Ottawa seeming like one of the epicenters of this problem?
That's a great question, and I think that one of the root causes, right, is the percentage of profit that's in it is huge, right? And the technology that we enjoy as consumers that goes into the newer vehicles, right, is also got its vulnerabilities, which is leading to the ease and the theft.
Right.
So when you combine the profitability with the ease of theft, then you have a recipe for the situation we're in, which is a $1 billion annually industry for Canadians.
Yeah.
And that being said, this is no money up front. That's very minimal to pay for your driver and get everything that you need done. And it's pure profit.
Right.
And so it has taken off with the proximity key, which is the push button, basically. It got started in 2013 is the first time we saw it, and it continued to grow as the education grew amongst thieves and organized crime. Not to mention penalties in court at that time were much less.
Right.
So why wouldn't you?
Right. It's interesting, the profit piece, right? It's like a business in some ways, I
Sure.
sense, right?
Sure.
The other piece that's interesting to me is the technological piece, that with actually new technology, it's actually simpler at some level for these folks to steal cars. Is that true?
Yeah, it certainly is. So, like I said before, with the convenience that the technology brings, there's also vulnerabilities to that. And when they started off with some of the push button technology and the smart fobs and that kind of thing, it was billed as being a solution to some of the theft problems. Once you compromise that code or develop a workaround, then there's a lag time for the industry to kind of catch up, and certainly for law enforcement and consumers as well by extension.
I don't
We
think.
better serve with a key.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. You know, it's interesting, right? Sometimes old school can be the best school, and that's an example of that. I also know that there's certain types of vehicles that are much more likely to get stolen than others. I don't know if that's just straight up more expensive cars, or there's some other dynamic involved where certain vehicle types and brands seem to be the ones most vulnerable. Can you talk a little bit about what brands seem to be more and less vulnerable and why?
So that's a great question, and I'll maybe break it up into a couple parts. So broadly speaking, the vast majority of vehicles that are going all fall into a fairly narrow category. That's a newer push-button start, and it's going to be luxury SUVs and light trucks or full-size pickups. So that's kind of your ideal range. Part of the reason for that is for that percentage of vehicles that goes for the export market, so abroad, is it fits the need of the consumer base that are abroad, right? That's the kind of vehicles that they're looking for, it's the kind of vehicles that they can get service for in the event there's a breakdown. You're also correct in that there's other luxury brands that, of course, make these vehicles that are highly sought after and arguably have a higher profit margin.
Right.
But why aren't they being stolen?
Right.
And there's some distinctions in the manufacturing process that make it a little more easy for thieves to target, the CRVs, or the RAV4s and the Highlanders, the Jeep Cherokees versus maybe a Mercedes SUV or a BMW.
Right. Perfectly logical reasons every time. It's interesting, and the technology playing a role there. From your point of view, Kathy, what do you see in terms of the boldness of these sort of criminal elements and their it seems like even in broad daylight, sometimes they're taking these cars.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
What's the story on why they're so bold with what their behavior?
Why not? Right? There hasn't been anything. There was a huge move with increased shootings and gang violence and stuff within the province, where a lot of the police services trying to manage, their human resources sort of pulled back their auto theft units. So how much was it being policed, that sort of thing. But now that they've seen how lucrative it is,
Right.
There's a big prize for the trouble or the risk that they're going through. So Doug was part of a very good committee sort of for bail review to try and look at, okay, why are we opening the door the minute we bring these guys in so they're stealing cars that night? And that has been very successful. But whereas it used to be a middle of the night crime, now it's
all the time.
Daytime, and they've latched on to the huge parking lots. There's a big sporting event here or a big concert here. They know there's going to be a whole bunch of high-end cars and not a lot of eyes on such a big space. And so it doesn't take them more than about 15 minutes to leave with the car. So it's so lucrative that I think that's why every organized crime group that I'm aware of makes money wherever they can make money. And this is certainly, Canada has been deemed a source country.
Yes. I have an impression that Canada seems to be more pronounced in terms of how big the problem is versus other places. So now we're describing the problem, but of course what our members care about and what Canadians in general care about is, well, what the heck can I do about this? How can I, as a consumer, do some things to protect myself? So this is an important part for us at CA. We really want to be able to give consumers a handful of things they can do to at least try and protect themselves.
Sure. Not the least of which is we haven't lost any cars out of garages. So Canadians notoriously with the winter months sort of have seasonal stuff, and people store them in their garage. So if you have a garage, please clean it out, move your stuff somewhere else, and put your car inside. Secondly, vehicle immobilizers that will interfere with either the crank, the gas, or the electrical on the car will impede somebody being able to take your car in the first place.
Right.
Okay, so,
and those are things, they're like a third-party thing you can get installed by a repair guy?
Things like immobilizers or tag systems that help at least locate the vehicles when they are vulnerable to be located after they're taken. The lesser expensive items are things like something visual, like a club alongside a cord lock. So a cord lock is a lock that goes on the ECM port, which is down by your left knee where they plug in to reprogram a new key.
Put it in the garage.
Immobilizers backed up by a tag system so that if they don't start it but drag it up on a flatbed to take it away, you can still find it.
Right. Tag system. Any other things you guys suggest that consumers do?
A certain amount of it's going to be situational awareness too. So that's going to follow some of the developing trends, not about theft.
Right.
5 years ago, it said pretty comfortably that all of these thefts are happening and it's going to driveways overnight. The key point, I think, with all these options is prevention. So some of the challenges I see with consumers for these vehicles is, okay, it hasn't happened to me yet. I've got away with it. Do I want to spend $200-300 or $1,200? That can be a bit of an obstacle, and we're all human, we're all lazy, so we tend to do what's simplest and easiest in the time, and then you run the risk.
There's a handful of things that every consumer can do to protect yourself and hopefully avoid all of those bad things if and when it gets stolen. Kathy and Doug, I want to thank you so much for coming in today, for chit-chatting with me about this. Hopefully a bunch of our members are going to watch this video or read the articles and learn more, and we can guard against this criminal element that is really taking advantage of the situation.